Hello, are we ready for first ASMR? Why do I hear myself double? That's not good. Oh, hold on. Do you guys hear me double? Because I hear me double. Oh, I found it. Can you guys hear the music? Have we been sitting in silence this whole time? Well, that's cool. God dang it. Okay, well, let's switch over so you can hopefully hear the audio. I should be playing through. Okay, let me know if you can hear it now. But hello, welcome everybody. We're doing our first ASMR stream as best I can. I'm gonna check my audio really quick on my end, make sure the music's coming through. Okay, cool. It is. We're Gucci. I just got off of doing my singing lesson actually. And it went really good. It went really good. So that's exciting. But we'll talk about it tomorrow during the art stream because we're just gonna get into the book. I forgot to grab my tea. Oh well, but we have a La Croix here. Always come packing that La Croix. She be packing, and it's La Croix. Okay, so we're gonna start, but before we do, let me drop the image of the book that we're reading. This is the book that we're reading. It's called Rise of the Horde. Yes, we're doing more World of Warcraft content. You thought you could escape it, but you can't. I am so sorry. I hope, would you still love me if I just did World of Warcraft content for the rest of January? Don't worry, there is an art stream tomorrow, so we will be breaking it up. All right, but I'm gonna put this under the overlay. Is my overlay on actually? Let's see. When I turn down sound alerts, they should still go, but hopefully they'll be a little bit quieter. I'm gonna go ahead and lower it even more on my end, just in case. And if they come through loud, I'm gonna cry, and I'm sorry. Yes, we're reading Rise of the Horde by Christie Golden, an awesome book. Can I not rotate it? Can you not rotate things? I thought you could rotate things, and there we go, in OBS. I'm also gonna shrink it down. This is the book. Christie Golden is an awesome writer. She's done a lot of the World of Warcraft novels. And I just recently read this one over Christmas time, and it was fantastic. So I felt like I should read it to you guys. I'm gonna do my best. Hopefully I don't well, already stuttering. Well, hopefully I don't stumble over my words too much, and hopefully you can follow along. This is a testing stream, so we're gonna test this out. And if you'd like to have it up on the screen, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but I'm gonna look up more into it to see if that's something I can do. But let's get started. So we're starting at the prologue. The power of the stranger, the power, hold on, cut. Let me try that again. The power the stranger radiated swirled in glorious hues and vibrations, flowing like a cape behind him, encircling his mighty head with a light like a crown. The voice was audible in both ears and the mind, and raced along the blood like sweet, long forgotten, like a sweet song long forgotten, now suddenly recalled. Hello. What he offered was tempting, was exciting, and made the heart ache with yearning. But still, there was something. When he had gone, the leaders of the Eridar turned to one another and spoke softly, the words intended for their minds alone. "It is little enough to ask for what he offers us," said the first. He stretched, in the physical world and metaphysical one, sending forth echoes of his strength. "Such power," murmured the second, lost in thought. He was the elegant one, the beautiful one, and his essence was glorious and radiant. And he speaks the truth. What he had showed us will come to pass. No one can lie in such a telling. The third one was silent. What the second one had said was true. The method by which this powerful being had demonstrated the truth of what he offered could not be falsified. They all knew that. Still, this entity, this Sargeras, there was something about him that Velen very misliked. Did the gotcha play? Did the gotcha show up on screen? Really quick. If it didn't, let me know. No. Let me add it. Stop. Wait, don't pull the gotchas. Don't pull the gotchas yet. Wait. Wait. Let me refund you. Hold on. Hold. Everybody hold. Ta-da. Where's the thing to manage redeems? I always lose that button. I always lose it. Settings. Oh, if I cry. Hold on, guys. Sorry. We interrupt this reading for lack of gotcha times. No, don't pull it up. It's not coming yet. Hold on. I still gotta grab it. Redeems. Fuki group. It should be. That's the Batsu wheel. What do you mean it's funny? It's not funny. I'm gonna cry. Hold on. I thought I had this scene all completely set up, but apparently not. It should be a browser source now. Let me see. Not showing up in my browser sources for some reason. Hey, are we reading WoW? We are reading WoW. I'm gonna probably start over because I forgot or forgot to grab the gotcha. Here, let me go to studio mode really quick and I can grab it from another scene. I got this, guys. I got you. It is a browser source. Why wasn't it popping up, brother? We can survive one day without it. No, because I can't find my freaking we can't deprive the people of the gotcha. And I can't find my trying to come up with a Death Knight name. How do you feel about Dead Jamboree? That's fantastic. At least you guys can. I got to see mine. You gotta pull at the beginning of the stream. There's my reading tab. Okay, reading tab. Paste. Alright, now you can pull. Corpse party was taken. That's so sad. Are you starting a fresh tune for the pre-patch in 4 days? Or 5 days. I think it's 1 day after Legion Remix ends. Okay, where is the thing to manage my redeem stuff? Oh, hell yeah, that level 80 boost, baby. I already used mine. I used mine. Where the frick is... Okay, turn off all the filters. Where is redeems? Manage redeems. There we go. No, that's... I don't want to report the redemption. I want to manage them. But I can't I always forget where the button is. Oh, this makes me so mad. Oh, there it is. Manage rewards. Okay, now I can refund you. No, that's not the right window either. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna make a note. Refund you guys for the gotchas. 7 Bull Shock. And whoever else pulled. But you should be able to pull your second one if you haven't already. is gonna bother me. I really want to find, where is that button, bro? Where is that button? The button. Let me go to Azure Mistile because that's gonna be a good loopable one. Nice and quiet. Nice and quiet. Hopefully you can't hear the laundry in the background. Wait, I haven't switched it. Wait, Voljag. No, there we go. Okay, did you get to see it? I hope you got to see it. Oh, freaking heck. I was still in studio mode. It worked, thank goodness. Thank goodness. It worked. Okay, cool. At least you got to see the second one. Okay, are we ready for reading? Just remind me, Sev, after to give you your points back. I'm just being a problem. That's okay. You're never a problem. You are never a problem. All right, let's start it over. We'll reread the beginning few paragraphs of the prologue. We come back after this gotcha intermission. Although I need to, I should have ran the ad at the starting screen. We have 14 minutes and then an ad will run. Wowzer, reading time. It's reading time. We're reading. Okay, the prologue. The power the stranger radiated swirled in glorious hues and vibrations, flowing like a cape behind him, encircling his mighty head with light like a crown. The voice was audible both in ears and in the mind, and raced along the blood like a sweet song long forgotten and now suddenly recalled. What he offered was tempting, was exciting, and made the heart ache with yearning. But still, there was something. When he had gone, the leaders of the Eridar turned to one another and spoke softly, the words intended for their minds alone. "It is little enough to ask for what he offers us," said the first. He stretched, in the physical world and metaphysical one, sending forth echoes of his strength. "Such power," murmured the second, lost in thought. He was the elegant one, the beautiful one, and his essence was glorious and radiant. "And he speaks the truth. What he showed us will come to pass, and no one can lie in such a telling." Let me know how loud that is. Hi, Sunwon. The third was silent. What the second had said was true. How loud is that alert, actually? It comes out as normal sound on my end, but I have it lower, hopefully for you guys. Breaking the immersion. No, you're good, you're good. Actually, I could do this. We'll turn off the, is it an alert sound? I actually don't know. I'll just keep it really low. So you're all good. All right, the third was silent. What the second one said was true. The method by which this powerful being had demonstrated the truth of what he offered could not be falsified. They all knew that. Still, this entity, this Sargeras, there was something about him that Velen misliked. Velen's fellow leaders were also his friends. He was particularly close to Kil'jaeden, the most powerful and decisive of the three. Friends they had been down the years that had slipped by unnoticed by the beings beyond reach of time. That Kil'jaeden was inclined to accept the offer carried more weight with Velen than Archimonde's opinion, which, though usually sound, could occasionally be swayed by appeals to his vanity. Velen thought again of the image shown to them by Sargeras. Worlds for them to conquer, and more importantly, to explore and investigate. For above all, the Eridar were curious. For being so powerful, knowledge was what made what meat and drink were to lesser beings, and Sargeras offered them a tantalizing glimpse into what could be theirs if they would only swear their loyalty to him, only pledge the same for their people. "As usual, our Velen is the cautious one," said Archimonde. The words could have been a compliment. Instead, they struck Velen as condescending. He knew what Archimonde wanted, and Velen knew the other viewed his hesitancy as nothing more than an obstacle to what he, Archimonde, craved at this moment. Velen smiled. "Yes, I am the cautious one, and sometimes my caution has saved us as much as your decisiveness, Kil'jaeden, and your instinctive impetuousness, Archimonde." Both of them laughed, and for a moment Velen was warmed by their affection. When they quieted and sensed that they, at least, had already made up their minds, Velen felt his heart sink as he watched them go, hoping that he would make the right decision. The three of them had always worked well together, their diverse personalities serving to balance one another. The result was harmony and peace for their people. He knew that Kil'jaeden and Archimonde truly wanted what was best for themselves, but for those who they led. He shared that sentiment, and always before they had reached agreement on such things. Velen frowned. Why did the confident, appealing Sargeras unsettle him so? The others were obviously inclined to accept the offer. Sargeras had told them that the Eridar were exactly what he had been searching for. A strong, passionate, proud people who would serve him and advance a cause that would bring all worlds, everywhere, together. He would enhance them, he said. He would change them, make them better, give them gifts that the universe had never before seen. For indeed, the universe had never before brought together the powers that Sargeras claimed and the uniqueness that was the Eridar. And what Sargeras had told them would indeed come to pass. And yet... Velen went to the temple, where he had often gone before when troubled. Others were there that night, sitting in a circle around a single pillar in the room that bore the precious Amatal crystal. The artifact was ancient, so ancient that none among the Eridar could remember its origins, any more than they could remember their own. Legend had it that it was a gift bestowed upon them long ago. Hi, Spy Kid. Oh, good luck with your homework. Gonna play modded Minecraft, let's go. It had been used in the past for healing, conjuration, and as Velen hoped to use it tonight, for visions. Respectfully, he went forward and touched upon the triangular crystal. The warmth of it, like a small animal nestled in his hand, calmed him. He breathed deeply, letting the familiar power penetrate him, and then dropped his hand and returned to the circle. Velen closed his eyes. He opened every part of him that could receive body and mind and magical intuition. At first, what he saw seemed to only confirm that what Sargeras had promised. He saw himself standing with Archimonde and Kil'jaeden, lords of not only their own noble and proud people, but of countless other worlds. Power shimmered around them, power Velen knew would be as intoxicating as any liquor he might sip. Shining cities were theirs, along with the inhabitants of those cities, prostrating themselves before the three and cheers of cries of adoration and loyalty. Technology, such as Velen had never dreamed of, awaited his exploration. Tomes and strange tongues were translated before him, revealing magic hitherto unimagined and untold. It was glorious, and his heart swelled. He turned to look at Kil'jaeden, and his old friend smiled. Archimonde put a friendly hand on his shoulder. Then Velen looked down at himself and cried out in horror. His body was now gargantuan, but twisted and distorted. His smooth blue skin now black and brown and gnarled, like something like some once noble tree disfigured by disease. Light radiated from him, true, but not the light of pure, powerful, positive energy, but a sickly green. Frantically he turned to behold his friends, his fellow leaders of the Eridar. They too had been transformed. They too retained nothing of what they had been, but were now. Man'ari. The Eridar word for something horrifically wrong, something twisted and unnatural and defiled, slammed into his mind with the force of a shining sword. He cried out again, and his knees buckled. Velen pulled his gaze away from his tormented body, searching for the peace and prosperity and knowledge Sargeras had promised him. He beheld only atrocities. So, sorry, I'm gonna close the door really quick. I'll be right back. I'm too strong. Okay. He beheld only atrocities. Where before him had been an adoring crowd, now he only saw mutilated corpses or bodies that, like his and Kil'jaeden's and Archimonde's, had been transformed into monsters. Among the dead and distorted, capered beings that Velen had never before seen. Strange dogs with tentacles sprouting from their backs, tiny twisted figures that danced and capered and laughed at the carnage. Deceptively beautiful creatures, their wings outstretched behind them, who had surveyed what had been wrought with delight and pride. Where their cloven hooves fell, the earth died. Not just the grass, but the soil itself, all that gave life was obliterated, sucked dry. This, then, was what Sargeras planned to do to the Eridar. This was the enhancement he had spoken of so glowingly. If Velen's people allied with Sargeras, they would become these monstrous things, these Manari. And somehow Velen understood that what he was witnessing was not a single incident. It was not just this one world that would fall. It's not even a dozen or 100 or 1,000. If he threw his support behind Sargeras, everything would be destroyed. This legion of Manari would keep moving forward, aided by Kil'jaeden and Archimonde. And may all that was good and pure help him, Velen. They would not stop until everything in existence was scoured and blackened as this patch of ground that Velen viewed through a blurred vision. Was Sargeras insane? Or worse, did he understand this and still crave it? Blood and liquid fire poured over everything, rained down upon him, burning him and spattering him until he fell to the earth and wept. The vision mercifully vanished, and Velen blinked, trembling. He was now alone in the temple, and the crystal glowed comfortingly. He was grateful for that balm. It had not yet happened. Not yet. What Sargeras had told them was indeed true. The Eridar would be transformed, and their 3 leaders would be offered power, knowledge, domination, near godhood. And they would lose everything they held dear, would betray those that they had vowed to protect to do it. Velen ran a hand across his face, relieved to find it damp only with sweat and tears, and not the fire and blood of his vision. Not yet, anyway. Was it even possible to halt this? Or to mitigate the destruction of the Legion that wrought in their way? The answer floated back to him, as reviving and sweet as a draught of clear water in the desert. Yes. They came at once, responding to the emotion in his mental plea. It was but the matter of a few moments to brush their minds and let them see what he had seen, to feel what he had felt. For a brief instant he knew they shared his sentiments, and hope swelled within him. There was yet a chance. Archimonde frowned. This is not a glimpse into the future that we can verify. It is only your hunch. Velen stared at his old friend and then turned his eyes to Kil'jaeden. Kil'jaeden was not bound by his vanity as Archimonde was. He was decisive and wise. Archimonde is right, Kil'jaeden said smoothly. There is no veracity here, only an image in your own mind. Velen looked at him, pain welling inside him. Gently, sorrowfully, he detached his thoughts from theirs. Now, what was in his mind and his heart stayed there. He would never again share it with these 2 who had once been like extensions of his own soul. Kil'jaeden took this withdrawal as surrender, which was as Velen intended, and smiled as he placed a hand on Velen's shoulder. I do not want to give up what I know to be positive and good and true for what I fear might be unpleasant, he said. Nor, I think, do you. Velen could not risk a lie. He merely looked down inside. Once Kil'jaeden and even Archimonde would have seen through such a feeble facade, but now their thoughts were not on him. They were thinking about how apparently limitless power about to be bestowed on them. It was too late to sway them. These 2 once great beings were Sargeras' playthings, and they were on their way to becoming Manari. Velen knew with a terrifying certainty that if they had guessed what he was not with them, they would turn upon him with deadly consequences. He had to survive, if only to do what precious little he could do to save his people from damnation and destruction. No, we have an ad in 1 minute. Okay. So he nodded, but spoke nothing, and it was decided that the 3 leaders of the Eridar would ally with the great Sargeras. Archimonde and Kil'jaeden departed quickly to make necessary preparations to welcome their new lord. Velen grieved over his impotence. He wanted to save all of his people, and he had sworn to do, but he knew that it was impossible. Most would trust in Kil'jaeden and Archimonde and follow them to their doom, but there were a few who thought as he did, who would forsake everything merely upon his word. They would need to. Their home world of Argus would shortly be destroyed, devoured by the madness of the demonic legion. Those who would survive would have to flee. But flee where? Velen stared down at the Amantal crystal, despair flooding through him. Sargeras was coming. There was no place in this world to hide from such a being. How, then, would he escape? Tears blurred his vision as he gazed at the crystal. Surely it was his tears that made it seem that it would shimmer and pulse. But Velen blinked. No, it was no trick of the light seeing through his tears. The crystal was glowing, and before his shocked gaze, it rose slowly from its pedestal and floated until it was directly before him. Touch it, a voice said in his head softly. Trembling and awestruck, Velen reached out a strong blue hand, expecting to feel the familiar warmth of the quiescent prism. I'm gonna need to look up that word. Energy raced through him and he gasped. In intensity, it was almost as powerful as the dark energy that surged through him in his vision. But this was pure as all that had been foul, and as light as all had been dark, and Velen suddenly felt hope and strength well inside him. Alright, we have an ad coming up. Let me switch to the BRB screen, but I'm going to turn off the BRB screen music. Make it nice and quiet. I keep the Spotify audio going. Oh, it's not switching. Oh, very cool. All right, well, we will be right back. Hopefully the audio isn't too jarring. I'll try to quiet it before it goes on too long, but we will be right back. I'm gonna eat some food and we continue the prologue. Be right back. All right, we're back. We're back. Apparently, the longest book that I read to Cloudy in the car was C++. Please, C++ book. Concurrency and I don't. He asked me, and I'm like, I don't remember at all. My memory blotted it out, I guess. But we were on a car drive, and I'm imagining it was probably for his homework or something. Okay. We're continuing. Yeah, we were in college. I'm gonna continue from where we left off in the prologue. Where were we? Energy raced through him and he gasped. In intensity, it was almost as powerful as the dark energy that had surged through him in his vision. But this was pure as that had been foul, and as light as that had been dark, and Velen had suddenly felt hope and strength well inside him. Sorry, I took a sip of my liqueur, and it's making me burpy. The strange glowing field about the Amantal crystal grew, stretched upward, and assumed a shape. Velen blinked, almost blinded by the radiance, but not wanting to look away. You are not alone, Velen of the Eridar, the voice whispered to him. Oh, wait, do I have? You are not alone, Velen of the Eridar, the voice whispered to him. It was soothing and sweet, like the sound of flowing water and the rush of summer wind. You're fine, don't worry. Let me know if the gotcha stuff is much louder, because it shouldn't be too. Oh, you know what? I think I control the volume and mix it up. Let me go ahead and turn it down really quick, but you can still feel free to grab your gotcha cards. You're all good. You are all good. Let's just see if I remember how to do it. Sorry, this is a test. This is the first ever ASMR stream, so I'm still working things out. You know. Let's see. Should be in. I forgot that I had that angel emote. Let's see. Music player. No. If I go to, it should be under rewards, currency rank, inventory, channel points. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Redeem card. Edit. It doesn't have it. Where is it? True Farm. Wow. No, redeem card should have the sound in there. I'll have to figure it out. Nande. Alright. We'll worry about it later. Okay. We continue. Also, where's my wave link? Oh, it's not showing up. That's weird. There we go. I wanted to be able to add reverb when we want it. There it is. There we go. Hopefully the reverb's not too crazy. Hopefully it doesn't go too crazy. Okay. Where were we? You are not alone, Velen of the Eridar, the voice whispered to him. It was soothing and sweet like the sound of flowing water and the rush of summer wind. The radiance faded slightly, hovering before Velen. Was a being like he never had seen. It had seemed to be comprised of living light. Its center was a soft golden hue, the outer radius a glowing, soothing violet. Strange metallic-looking glyphs swirled around the center, calming and hypnotic, in a spiral dance of color and light. It continued to speak inside his mind, a sound that seemed to Velen to be light itself given voice. We too have sensed the impending horrors about to befall this world and others. We strive to keep the balance, and what Sargeras is planning to do will rip apart everything. Utter chaos and ruination will descend, and the things that are good and true and pure and holy will be lost beyond recovery. Who? What? Velen could not even form the question in his mind, so swept away was he by this being's glory. We are the Na'aru, the radiant entity said. You may call me Ku'ur. Velen's lips curved around the word, and he whispered them aloud. Naru. Ku'ur. He tasted the sweetness of them as if speaking the names granted to him by their very essence. This is where it all begins, Ku'ur continued. We cannot stop it, for your friends will have free will, but you have reached out with an anguished heart to save what you can, and therefore we will do what we can. We will save those of whose hearts reject the horrors that Sargeras offers. What do I do? Again, tears filled Velen's eyes, tears of relief and joy this time. Gather those who will listen to your wisdom. Go to the highest mountain in the land on the longest day of the year. Take the Amatal crystal with you. Long, long ago did we give it to you. It is how we will find you again. We will come and bear you away. For a moment, a flicker of doubt, like a shadow flame, burned in Velen's heart. He had never heard of such beings of light as the Naru, and now this entity, this Ku'ur, was asking him to steal his people's most sacred object. They even claimed that it was they who had given it to the Eridar in the first place. Perhaps Kil'jaeden and Archimonde had the right of it. Perhaps Velen's vision was nothing more than his fear manifesting itself. But even as the twisting thoughts raced through his mind, he knew them to be the last vestiges of the broken-hearted yearning for everything to be as it once was, before things had changed so horribly, before Sargeras. He knew what he had to do, and he bowed his head before the glorious, dancing being of light. The first and most trusted ally that Velen summoned was Talgath, an old friend and one who had aided him in the past. All rested upon this friend, who would be able to move unwatched where Velen could not. Talgath was skeptical at first, but then Velen linked their minds and showed him the dark vision that he had been granted. Talgath quickly agreed. Velen said nothing of the Naru and the offer of aid, as he himself did not know what form this aid would take. He only assured Talgath that there was a way to escape that destiny, if Talgath trusted him. The longest day of the year was drawing close, with all the discretion he could muster. While Archimonde and Kil'jaeden were obsessing over Sargeras, Velen sent out tendrils of thought to those he trusted. Others were gathered by Talgath, coming to Velen's side in defense of themselves and their people. Velen then turned his attention to weaving the subtlest of magic webs about the two traitors he had once held as dear friends, so their attention was not caught by frantic activity occurring beyond their vision. With startling speed and yet agonizing slowness, an intricate web was created. When at last the day came, the Eridar who had chosen to follow Velen assembled at the top of the tallest mountain of their ancient world. Velen saw that their number was sickeningly small. They numbered only in the hundreds. These were the only ones Velen truly trusted. He did not dare risk all by contacting those he thought would possibly turn against him. Only a short time ago, Velen had taken the Amatal crystal from its place. He had spent the last few days fabricating a false one so that no alarm would be sounded when it was discovered missing. He carved it from a simple rock crystal with the utmost care, casting a glamour upon it so that it would glow. But it remained dead to the touch. If someone brushed this false crystal with his or her fingertips, the theft would be revealed. The true Amatal crystal he now held close to his heart as he watched his people climbing the mountain, their strong legs and sure hooves finding easy purchase. Many had already arrived and looked at him expectantly, wondering, the question clear in their eyes, if not on their lips. How, they were wondering, would they escape? How indeed, Velen thought. For a moment he despaired, but then he recalled the radiant being who had linked its thoughts with his. They would come. He knew it. In the meantime, every moment that passed meant they were closer to being discovered, and so many were not yet here, not even Talgath. In the no. Restalon, another old friend, smiled at Velen. They will be here soon, he said reassuringly. Velen nodded. More than likely, Restalon was right. There had been no sign that his old friends, now enemies, Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, had been alerted to the outrageously bold plan. They had been far too consumed with anticipating the future power. And yet, and yet, the same deep instinct that had warned him to mistrust Sargeras now nagged at his mind. Something was not right. He realized he was pacing. And there they were. Talgath and several others cleared a rise, smiling and waving. Velen exhaled in relief. He started down to meet them with the crystal he held. When the crystal he held sent a powerful surge through his body, his blue fingers clenched tightly around the gem as his mind opened to its warning. Velen's knees buckled as the mental stench assaulted him. Sargeras had already begun. He had already started creating his hideous legion, taking Eridar who had been foolish or trusting enough to listen to Kil'jaeden and Archimonde and distorting them into the Minari Velen had seen in his vision. There were thousands of Minari, of every physical description and ability, lying just beyond his sight and sensing. They were disguised, somehow. If he had not been holding the crystal, he never would have sensed them until it was far, far too late. It might already be too late. He turned a shocked gaze to Talgath, suddenly aware that the taint emanating from his old friend was as well from the multitude, the legion, of monsters who lurked beyond his sight. A prayer wrenched from the utter depths of his despairing soul and shivered up his mind. Ku'ur! Help us! The Minari were scrambling up the mountain now, sensing that they had been exposed and closing in like hungry predators for the kill. Except Velen knew that death would be preferable to what these distorted Eridar would do to him and those who followed him. At his wits' end, Velen gripped at the Emmental crystal and thrust it upward into the sky. As if the heavens themselves were cracking open, a pure shaft of radiant white light appeared. Its glory now shone directly onto the crystalline prison, and before Velen's stunned gaze, splintered the white light into 7 distinct rays of various hues. Pain stung Velen as the crystal he held shattered. The sharp edges sliced his fingers. He grasped instinctively and released the fractured crystal, watching enraptured as the pieces hovered in the air, each transforming itself into a perfect sphere and taking on 7 radiant hues of the light that had once been a single perfect shaft of pure white radiance. The 7 crystals, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, shot upward and then sped to form an enclosure of light around the frightened forms gathered near the Eridar. At that precise instant, Talgath raced toward him, naked loathing in his gaze. He slammed down into the circle of multicolored lights, lights, as if it was a stone wall and tumbled backwards. Velen whirled and saw the Minari descend, snarling, drooling, their claws scrabbling on a wall made only of light, which yet protected Velen and his people. A deep thrumming sound raced along Velen's nerves and more felt than heard. He looked upward and on this day of wonders saw something that surpassed even the miracle of the 7 stones of light. He beheld what first looked like a descending star, so bright he could almost not bear looking upon it. As it drew closer, he saw it was nothing so elusive as a star in the night skies, but a solid structure, its center as soft and round as the orbs, adorned with jutting crystalline triangles. Velen wept openly as a mental touch brushed his mind. I am here, as promised I would be, prepared to abandon this world, Prophet Velen. Velen extended his arms upward, almost like a child begging for a loving parent to be swept up into an affectionate embrace. The orb above him pulsed, and then Velen felt himself being lifted gently into the air. He floated upward and saw the others too were rising towards the vessel? For such Velen now understood it to be, though it also vibrated with a living essence that he could not yet comprehend. In the midst of the quiet joy, Velen heard the shrieks and screams and bellows of the Minari as their prey escaped. The base of the ship opened, and a few seconds later Velen found himself standing upon something solid. He knelt on the floor, if it could such be called, and watched as the rest of his people floated toward safety. When the last one had arrived, Velen expected the door to close and the ship that was made of metal that was not metal, flesh that was not flesh, and what Velen suspected was the very essence of Ku'ur, to depart. Instead, he felt a whisper in his mind. Dang it, sorry. The crystals. Where there was one, there are now 7. Recover them, for you will need them. Velen leaned over the opening and extended his hands. With shocking speed, the 7 crystals surged up towards him, striking his palm so hard he gasped. He gathered them close, ignoring the incredible heat that they emanated, and threw himself backwards. At once the door disappeared as if it never had been present. Clutching the 7 atomol crystals, his mind stretched so far he felt he was brushing the edge of madness. Velen hung suspended for an endless instant between hope and despair. Had they done it? Had they escaped? From his position at the head of the army, Kil'jaeden had an unobstructed view as the mountain was swarmed by his slaves. For a glorious moment he tasted victory, almost as sweet as the hunger Sargeras had planted in his mind. Talgoth had done his job well, and it had only been pure luck that Velen had been holding the crystal at the moment of the onslaught. Had he not, his body would be lying on the ground, torn into a handful of fleshy bits. But Velen had been holding the atomol crystal, and he had been warned. Something had happened. Something strange. Some strange lights had sprung up protectively around the traitor, and something had come for them. Now, as Kil'jaeden watched, the peculiar vessel shimmered and disappeared. He had escaped. Curse him. Damn him! Velen had escaped. The Minari whose delight had filled Kil'jaeden just seconds earlier were now full of consternation and disappointment. He touched all of their minds. They knew nothing. What was the thing that had come to snatch Velen from Kil'jaeden's very grasp? Fear now shuddered through Kil'jaeden. His master would not be pleased with these developments. What now? Asked Archimonde. Kil'jaeden turned to his ally. We find them, growled Kil'jaeden. We find them and destroy them, even if it takes 1,000 years. And that was the prologue. That was the prologue. We go on to chapter 1. And it's gonna switch up. It's gonna switch up a little bit. So I'm going to take a moment. I won't run an ad, but I'm gonna take a moment and eat some more of my food because I'm hungry. But that was the very beginning, the prologue of the book, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you are enjoying it so far. Sorry, I'm stumbling. It's very hard to keep up sometimes. I'm not doing Christie Golden too much justice by the way I'm reading her, by the way I'm reading it, but she writes really well. I really enjoy her writing. It's very interesting. So what happened, if any of you had missed it, was it started off on the planet of Argus, and that was the home of who were called the people that were called the Eridar. They are bipedal beings, but they're also technologically and very magically a very advanced society. And Sargeras came to them, their leaders, which was Kil'jaeden, Velen, and Archimonde, and said, "Hey, join my legion." And Velen clearly was like, I don't like this guy. This guy's sus. This guy's sus." But Archimonde and Kil'jaeden were like, "Nah, we can trust him. This sounds great. The power that he's going to give us, that sounds great. And all we have to do is pledge our loyalty. Sounds pretty good." And so Velen escaped via the Naru Ka'ur. And yeah, so that's what happened to the Eridar. And we're going to move in to chapter 1, and chapter 1 is going to be told from the point of view at the beginning, the first paragraphs, of Thrall, who's an orc, and then we're going to switch to a different point of view of a different orc at a different time. So get ready, get ready. But first I'm going to go to BRB, have some more of my curry, and then we'll get back to it. But I hope you're enjoying it. Be right back. Oh man. Oh man, the curry is so yummy but so spicy. So very spicy. But it's so good. Okay. Let's get back to chapter 1. And maybe we switch up the song. Oh, where did my background go? Oh, I'm on the wrong I'm on the wrong window. There we go. Okay. We're back. We're back. All right, we finished the prologue. Let's get to chapter 1. All right, here we go. My name is Thrall. The word means slave in the human tongue, and the story behind the naming is a long one, best left for another time. By the grace of the spirits and the blood of heroes before me that runs through my veins, I have become war chief of my people, the orcs, and the leader of a group of races known as the Horde. How this came to be, too, is another tale. The one I wish to set to parchment now, but for those who have lived it to pass to dwell with honorable ancestors, is the story of my father and those who believed in him, and of those who betrayed him, and indeed, all our people. What might have become of us had these events not unfolded, not even the wise shaman Drekthar can say. The paths of fate are many and varied, and no sane being should ever venture down the deceptively pleasant one of if only. What happened, happened. My people must shoulder both the shame and the glories of our choices. This is a tale not of the Horde as it exists today, a loose organization of orc, tauren, forsaken, troll, and blood elf, but its rise as the very first Horde. Its birth, like that of any infant, was marked by blood and pain, and its harsh cries for life meant the death of its enemies. For such a grim and violent tale, it begins peacefully enough amid the rolling hills and valleys of a verdant land called Draenor. The heartbeat rhythm of the drums lulled the younger orcs to sleep, but Duratan of the Frostwolf clan was wide awake. He lay with the others on the hard-packed dirt floor of the sleeping tent. A generous padding of straw and thick cleft-hoofed pelt protected him from the chill of the bone-cold earth. Even so, he felt the vibrations of the drumming travel through the earth and into his body. His ears were caressed by the ancient sound. How he longed to go out and join them. Duratan would have another summer before he'd be able to participate in the Omrigor, the rite of adulthood. Until that much-anticipated event, he would have to accept being shunted off. Oh, sorry. Let me switch the song. Let's go back. We'll go back to this one. Until that much-anticipated event, he would have to accept being shunted off with the children into this large group tent, while the adults sat around the fire and talked of things that were doubtless mysterious and significant. He sighed and shifted on the pelt. It was not fair. The orcs did not fight amongst themselves, but neither were they particularly sociable. Each clan kept to itself, with its own traditions, styles, manners of dress, stories, and shaman. There were even variations of a dialect that differed so much that some orcs could not understand one another unless they spoke the common tongue. They almost seemed as different to one another as the other sentient race that shared the bounty of the field, forest, and streams, the blue-skinned, mysterious Draenei. Only twice a year, spring and autumn, did all the orc clans come together as they were doing now to honor that time when day and night were the same length. The festival had officially started last night at moonrise, though the orcs had been gathering at this spot for several days now. The Kasharg celebration had been held on this sacred spot in the land the orcs called Nagrand, Land of the Winds, which lay in the benevolent shadow of the Mountain of Spirits, Oshugun, for as long as anyone could remember. While the ritual challenges and combat were not unusual during festival, true anger or violence never erupted here. When tempers flared, as they sometimes did, when so many were gathered together, the shaman encouraged the parties involved to work it out peaceably, or else they were to leave the holy area. The land in this place was lush and fertile and calming. Duratan sometimes wondered if the land was tranquil because of the willingness of the orcs to bring peace to it. or if the orcs were peaceful because the land was so serene. He often wondered such things and kept them to himself, for he had heard no one else voicing such odd ideas. Duratan sighed quietly, his thoughts racing, his heart thumping and answering in rhythm to the voice of the drums outside. Last night had been wonderful, stirring Duratan's soul. When the pale lady cleared the dark line of trees, in her waning phase, but still bright enough to cast a powerful light that was reflected on the blankets of the white snow, a cheer had gone up from the throat of everyone in the thousands of orcs assembled. Wise elders, warriors in their prime, even children held in their mothers' strong arms. The wolves, both companions and mounts to the orcs, had joined with exultant howls. The sound shivered along Duratan's veins, as the drumming did now, a deep primal cry of salutation to the white orb who commanded the night skies. Duratan had glanced around to behold the sea of powerful beings raising their brown hands, silvered in the light, to the pale lady, all with one focus. If any ogre had been foolish enough to attack it, it would have fallen in a matter of heartbeats beneath the weapons of this vast sea of single-minded warriors. Then came the feasting. Dozens of beasts had been slain earlier in the season before the winter had set in, and dried and smoked in preparation for the event. Bonfires had been kindled, their warm light merging with the fey, white glow of the lady, and the drumming had begun and not stopped since. He, like all other children, lying on his cleft-hoof pelt, Duratan sniffed dismissively at the term, had been permitted to stay up until he had eaten his fill and the shaman had departed. The shaman of every clan left, once the opening feast had been consumed, to climb to Oshugun, which stood careful watch over the festivities, enter its caverns, and be advised by the spirits and their ancestors. Oshugun was impressive even from a distance. Unlike other mountains, which were irregular and rough in shape, Oshugun had erupted from the ground with precision and sharp point of a spearhead. It looked like a giant crystal set in the earth, so clean were its lines and so brightly did it glisten in the sun and the moonlight. Some legends told that it had fallen from the sky hundreds of years ago, and it was so unusual that Duratan thought those tales might be right. Interesting though Oshugun might be, Duratan always thought it had a bit unfair that the shaman had to stay here for the entire Koshgar festival. The poor shaman, he thought, missed all the fun. But then again, he suspected, so did the children. During the day, there were hunts and game playing and retelling of heroics of their ancestors. Each clan had its own stories, and so in addition to familiar tales Duratan had heard as a youngling, there were new and exciting adventures to listen to. Entertaining as these were, and as much as Duratan enjoyed them, he burned to know what the adults discussed after the children were drowsing in the sleeping tent, after their bellies were stretched full of good food and pipes and that had been smoked and various brews that had been shared. He could stand it no longer. Quietly, Duratan sat up, his ears straining for any sound to indicate anyone else was awake. He heard nothing, and after a long minute he got to his feet and began to move slowly towards the entrance. It was a long, slow progression in the darkened tent. Sleeping children of all ages and sizes were sprawled everywhere in the tent, and one wrong move could awaken them. His heart racing with excitement at his daring, Duratan stepped carefully between only faintly glimpsed shapes, placing each large foot with the delicacy of a long-legged marsh bird. It seemed to take an eternity before Duratan finally reached the flap. He stood, trying to calm his breathing, and reached out, and touched a large, smooth-skinned body standing right beside him. He jerked his hand back with a surprised hiss. "What are you doing?" "What are you doing?" the other orc shot back. Abruptly, Duratan grinned at how foolish they had sounded. "Same thing you are," Duratan replied, his voice still soft. All about them, the others slept on. "We can either keep talking or go and do it." Duratan could tell by the size of the faint shape in front of him that the orc was a large male, probably close to his own age. He couldn't place the scent or the voice, so it wasn't one of the Frostwolf clan. It was a daring thought, not only to do something forbidden as leave the sleeping tent without permission, but to do so in the company of an orc that was not of his own clan. The other orc hesitated, the same thoughts, no doubt, running through his head. "Very well," he said at last. "Let's do it." Duratan reached out again into the darkness, his fingers brushing the hide of the flap and curling it around its edge. The two orc youths pulled back the flap and stepped out into the frosty night. Duratan turned to look at his companion. The other orc was brawnier than he, stood a bit taller. Duratan was the largest of his age in his clan, and unused to the others being taller than he. It was a bit disquieting. His ally in mischief turned to look at him. Duratan felt himself being assessed. The other nodded, apparently satisfied with what he saw. They did not risk words. Duratan pointed to a large tree close to the tent, and silently the two headed for it. For a moment that was probably not as long as they felt, they were in the open, exposed to any adult who chose that instant to turn his head and see them, but they were not spotted. Duratan felt as exposed as if he were in the bright sunlight. So powerful was the moon's glow reflected off the crystalline snow. And surely the sound of the snow squeaking beneath their feet was loud as the bellow of an enraged ogre. At last they reached the tree and sank down behind it. Duratan's breath misted as he finally exhaled. The other orc turned to him and grinned. "I am Orgrim, line of Telkar Doomhammer, of the Blackrock clan," the youth said in a proud whisper. Duratan was impressed. While the Doomhammer line was not a line of chieftain, it was well known and honored. "I am Duratan, line of Garad, the Frostwolf clan," Duratan replied. Now it was Orgrim's turn to react to the fact that he was sitting next to the heir of another clan. He nodded approvingly. For a moment they simply sat, reveling in the glory of their daring. Duratan began to feel the cold and wetness seep through his thick hide cape and got to his feet. Again he pointed at the gathering, and Orgrim nodded. They carefully peered around the tree, straining to listen. Surely now they would hear the mysteries for which they both hungered. Over the crackling sound of the huge bonfire and the deep, steady beating of the drums, voices floated to them. The shaman have kept busy with the fever. Oh, the shaman have kept busy this winter with the fever, Duratan's father Gorad said. Reached down and petted the huge white wolf that was drowsing next to the fire. The beast, its white coat distinguishing itself as a frost wolf, made a soft crooning and sound of pleasure. Soon as one of the youngling gets cured, another falls ill. I am ready for spring myself," another male said, tossing another log onto the fire. "It's been harsh with the animals, too. When we were preparing for the festival, we had a hard time finding cleft hoofs. Thank you for the follow. Klaga makes a delicious soup from the bones, but she refuses to tell us what herbs she uses," a third said, glaring at a female who was nursing an infant. The female in question, presumably Klaga, chuckled. "The only one who'll get that recipe is this little one when she comes of age," Klaga replied, and grinned. Duratan's jaw dropped. He turned his head to stare at Orgrim, who wore a similar expression of stunned dismay. This was what was so important, so secret that the children were forbidden to leave the tent to listen to it? Discussions of fevers and soups? In the bright light of the moon, Duratan had no trouble seeing Orgrim's face clearly. The other youth's brow drew together in a frown. You and I can come up with something more interesting than this, Duratan," he said in a low, gruff voice. Duratan grinned and nodded. He was certain of it. The festival lasted for 2 more days. During the daytime and at night, when the two would sneak out together, they challenged each other to different contests of skill. Racing, climbing, strength, sure-footedness, everything they could think of, and each defeated the other as if they had planned on taking turns. When, on the last day, Orgrim loudly called for a 5th challenge to break the stalemate, something inside Duratan made him speak. "Let us not perform common, ordinary challenges," Duratan said, wondering where the words came from, even as he uttered them. "Let us do something truly different in the history of our people." "I'm sorry." Orgrim's bright gray eyes gleamed, and as he leaned forward, he said, "What do you suggest?" "Let us be friends, you and I." "Thank you." Orgrim's heavily muscled jaw dropped. "But we are not of the same clan," he said, in a voice that indicated to Duratan might have proposed a friendship between a great black wolf and a mild talbuk. Duratan waved and dismissed a hand. "Thank you for the follow, and enjoy the lurk, sorry." "We are not enemies," he said. "Look around you. The clans come together twice a year, and there's no harm in it." "But my father always says it's precisely because we come together so seldom that the peace is kept," Orgrim continued. His brow knotted with concern. Disappointment colored Duratan's words with bitterness. "Very well. I thought you braver than the others, Orgrim of the Doomhammer line, but you are no better than they, timid and shy and unwilling to see beyond what has always been done to what is possible." The words had came from his heart, but Uh, Duratan calculated them and honed them for weeks. He could not have chosen better. Orgrim's brown face flushed and his eyes snapped. I am no coward, he snarled. I back down from no challenge, you upstart frostwolf. He sprang on Duratan then, knocking the smaller orc off his feet, and the two pummeled each other until the shaman needed to be brought in for healing and lecturing on the inappropriateness of fighting in a sacred space. Impetuous boy, the head shaman of the Frostwolves, an ancient orc female they called Mother Kashur. You're not too old to be beaten as a disobedient child, young Duratan. The shaman who tended Orgrim muttered similar displeased sounds, but even as the blood streamed freely from his nose, he watched the shaman heal a wicked gash on Orgrim's brown torso. Duratan grinned. Orgrim caught his gaze and grinned back. The challenge had begun. The final challenge, so much more important than the races or lifting stones, and neither was willing to admit defeat. To say that friendship between two youths of different clans was wrong. Duratan had a feeling that this particular challenge would end only when one of them was dead, or perhaps not even then. That was chapter 1. So Orgrim and Duratan are friends. They're besties. They're besties. What time is it? I'm gonna go ahead and read chapter 2. But thank you guys for the follow, and thank you guys for thank you for coming in. We're gonna keep going. What time is it? 5:43. Yeah, we'll keep going. We'll see how far chapter 2 takes us, or how long it takes us into. I might be stopping around 6 or 6:30. What? Oh, is the snow not looking good? No, they're closed. No way. Oh, well, I might continue reading longer because we're not skiing apparently. Hi, Milo. And pretty Z plays. Thank you for the follow. Yeah, it's okay. Okay. All right. On to chapter 2. I remember when we first encountered the Tauren. I think this is from Thrall's voice. I remember when we first encountered the Tauren. Thank you for the follow. I remember Karen Bloodhoof's deep voice and calm face. I remember sitting on the ground in a tent that could be broken down and erected with startling speed, and feeling oddly at home. Oh, nice. Today's flavor is key lime. We smoked pipes, shared food and drink, felt the drumming in our bones, and talked. The Tauren seemed to be bestial at first, but there was a wisdom and humor in them, and by the time the first round of negotiations had been conducted, I knew that the orcs had a rare ally in these half-bovine beings. Night had fallen while we spoke, a soft night befitting this beautiful land. We left the tent? We left the tent and gazed up at the stars, too numerous to count, a sweet wind caressing our faces. I turned to Drekthar to ask for his wisdom. To my astonishment, I saw tears on his face, glinting in the moon's light. Ooh, lemon. This is how we used to be, my chieftain, he said in a broken voice. He lifted his arms and tilted his head back, calling the wind to embrace him and dry the tears on his strong green face. Close to the earth, close to the spirits, strong in the hunt and gentle with the younglings, knowing our place in the world to be right and just, understanding the balance of taking and giving. The only magic the Tauren practice is the good, clean magic of the earth, and the land reflects that, the way Draenor once reflected our connection. I thought of the Tauren's request for aid in fighting their enemy, the vile, filthy centaur. Yes, I feel for them. It'll be good to be able to help them, I said. Drekthar laughed, turning his blind eyes to me and seeing more clearly than anyone with sight could. Oh, my young thrall, he said, chuckling still. You do not yet understand. They will help us. Okay, and that's from Thrall's point of view. We're going back to Duratan. Thrall's point of view is actually closer to, it's not quite modern day, but it's closer to, it's after the opening of the Dark Portal, so. Duratan's era is before the opening of the Dark Portal, obviously because we're on Draenor. Okay. Duratan ran as fast as his powerful young legs could carry him. His breath came fast, and sweat dappled his reddish-brown skin, but he forced himself to keep going. It was summer, and his large, flat feet were bare. The grass was soft beneath him as he ran, and occasionally he would step on the bright purple blossom of a dassen flower. The scent from the bruised plant traditionally cultivated for healing wafted up like a blessing, inspiring him to run even farther, even faster. Now, He was on the fringe of the Terracar forest, pushing forward into its cool gray-green depths. He had to watch out for the twining roots of the elegant trees lest he trip over them, and his pace perforce slowed. Soft lights glowed in the green heart of the forest, and the calm exuded with the calm exuded was at sharp odds with Duratan's need for triumph. He increased his pace, leaping over fallen tree trunks covered with moss, ducking under low slung branches of the grace of the talbook, with the grace of a talbook. His black hair, long and thick and spilling all the way to the middle of his back, flew behind him. His lungs burned and his legs cried out for him to cease, but he ground his teeth and ignored the pleas from his body. He was a frost wolf, heir to the clan, chieftaincy, but no black rock could possibly. Duratan heard a faint approximation of a war cry behind him, and his heart sank. Orgrim's voice, like Duratan's, was still sinking towards that deep bellow that marked an adult male, but even Duratan had to admit it was already impressive. He willed his legs to pump even harder, but they felt as heavy and as unmoving as if they had been carved of stone. He watched in dismay as out of the corner of his eye Orgrim came into his field of vision and then, with a final spurt of energy, raced past him. The Blackrock orc extended his arm and lunged, managing to hit the tree trunk in the clearing that they had decided represented the goal of the race right before Duratan did. Orgrim kept going for several more strides, as if his powerful legs, once put into motion, were reluctant to stop. Duratan's legs had no such problems, and the heir to the Frostwolf clan fell forward, barely catching himself. He lay face down in the cool, sweet-smelling mossy earth, gasping for air, knowing he should sit up, knowing he should challenge Orgrim again, but too exhausted to do anything other than lie on the forest floor and recover. Beside him he heard Orgrim doing likewise, and then the other orc youth rolled over on his back and began to laugh. Duratan joined in. The birds and small animals that inhabited the Terracar forest were silent as the two orcs uttered sound of mirth that Duratan thought as his lips curled past the still-forming tusks probably sounded little more than like the fierce war cries that had besieged a hunt. "Ha!" grunted Orgrim, sitting up and punching Duratan's arm in a playful manner. "It is little effort to beat a stripling like you." "You have so much muscle that your brain is starved," Duratan retorted. "Skill is as important as power, but the Blackrock clan wouldn't know about such things." There was no malice in their banter. Their clans had been troubled at first by the friendship between the two youths, but Duratan's stubborn argument that just because something had never been done before did not mean it could not be done amused and impressed the leaders of both clans. It helped that both Frostwolf and Blackrocks were both traditionally even-tempered orc clans. Had Duratan proposed a friendship with the Warsong clan member, or a Bone Chewer, for example, known for their intense clan pride and distrust of others, a little flame of friendship would have died very quickly. So the elders watched and waited for the novelty to fade and for each youth to return to his rightful place to keep the familiar order that had been established, as long as anyone could recall. They were disappointed. The frost of late winter had given way to spring and now the full, blousy warmth of summer, and the friendship continued. Duratan knew that they were watched, but as long as no one interfered, he did not object. Duratan closed his eyes and let his fingers spread over the moss. The shaman said that all things had a life, a power, a spirit. They were deeply involved with the spirits of the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, and the spirit of the wilds, and claimed they could sense the life force in the earth, even seemingly in dead stone. All Duratan could feel was the cool, slightly moist sensation of moss and soil beneath his palms. The earth shuddered. His eyes snapped open. He bolted upright, his hand automatically going for the spike club that he constantly carried. Orgrim preferred a heavy metal and wood hammer, the traditional weapon of the Blackrocks, and simplified version of the legendary hammer that he would soon one day carry. The two boys exchanged glances. They did not need to speak to communicate. Was the thing that had made the earth shake so an enormous klepthoof, with its shaggy pelt that made magnificent blankets and rich red flesh that could feed almost a whole clan? Or was it something more dangerous? What did live in the Terracar forest, anyway? They had only been here before once. They got to their feet in unison, their small dark eyes peering into the now ominous-seeming dark corners of the close-growing trees, searching for whatever had made that noise. Boom! The earth shuddered again. Duratan's heart started to beat faster. If it was a small cleft hoof, maybe they could take it down and share the spoils with the clans. He glanced over at Orgrim and saw the other's eyes gleam with excitement. Boom! Crash! The both youths gasped and then retreated as the noise came closer. A tree only a few yards away from them seemed to splinter before their eyes. The thing that had made the noise so casually dispatched an ancient tree suddenly came into view. It was enormous. It carried a club as big as they were, and was almost definitely not a cleft hoof. And it had seen them. It opened its mouth and bellowed something that was vaguely intelligible, but Duratan wasn't about to waste time figuring out what it had said. Their thoughts were as one. The two boys turned and fled. Now Duratan wished desperately they had not decided to challenge one another in a race earlier, for his legs had not fully recovered, yet they still moved when he asked it of them, the need for survival lending him energy. How they had wandered so far how had they wandered so far into ogre territory? Where were the Gron? Duratan imagined one of the ogre's masters forcing its way through the trees, as the ogre had, towering over ordinary ogres, as ogres towered over the orcs. Even more hideous than an ogre, more of the earth than of flesh, and yet so terribly wrong. Its one eye bloodshot and staring as it pointed at Duratan and Orgrim and directed an ogre toward it. He and Orgrim were not yet of the season where they would be initiated into adulthood and permitted to go with the warriors of the clans to hunt the ogres, and on rare occasion the Gron themselves. They had gone on hunts that their clans had perceived as less dangerous, for Talbuk and other easy prey, but Duratan had always yearned for the day he would be allowed to tackle these fearsome creatures, winning the honor for himself and his clan. Now, he wasn't so sure. The earth continued to tremble, and the shouts of the ogre were coming clear, more and more clear now. "Crush the little orcs! Me smash!" The roar that followed this almost made his ears bleed. The thing was gaining on them, despite his brain's panicked order to his body to run faster, faster, curse you. He could not put any distance between him and the monstrous being that loomed so close, its vast shadow almost blotted out what little light filtered through the tree branches. The trees thinned and the light grew brighter. They were close to the edge of the forest now. Duratan kept running and burst into the open space of meadow, his feet falling again on soft grass. Orgrim was ahead of him, but not by much. Despair washed through Duratan, following hard by a black wave of fury. They were not yet adults. They had not yet gone on their first real hunt. They had not danced by the fire with the females. They had not bathed their faces in streaming blood of their first solo kills. There was so much they had not yet done. To die a glorious death in battle was one thing, but they were so overpowered by the hideous creature as to make their deaths humorous rather than honorable. Knowing it could cost him precious seconds, but unable to resist the impulse, Duratan turned his head to scream a curse at the ogre before it smashed him as flat as a grain cake with its club. What he saw made his jaw drop. Their rescuers did not utter a sound. They moved in silence, a quiet tide of blue and white and silver that seemingly sprang out of very thin air. Duratan heard the familiar whine of arrows shrieking through the air, and a heartbeat later, the ogre's cries were tinged with not rage but pain. Dozens of arrows, tiny things, on that massive pale body sprouted from it and halted its deadly progress. It yelled and tried to brush the irritations from its skin. A clear voice rang out. Even though he did not understand the language, Duratan recognized the words of power when he heard them. His skin prickled. Suddenly the sky was filled with lightning, but it was unlike any lightning Duratan had seen invoked by a shaman. Blue and white and silver energy crackled around the ogre, swirling around it and closing in like a net. The monster bellowed again and fell. The earth shook. Oh, are we going on an ad break? Oh, not yet. We have 5 more minutes. Now the Draenei, their bodies covered in some sort of metallic plating that reflected the cool hues of the magical energies in display that dazzled Duratan's eyes, dismounted and descended upon the fallen ogre. Blades flashed, more words of power and command were uttered, and Duratan was forced to shut his eyes or be driven mad by the display. As at last silence fell, Duratan opened his eyes again to see that the ogre was dead. Its eyes still stared, its tongue protruded from its parted lips, and its body covered with the red blood and black burn marks. So great was the silence that Duratan could hear his own ragged breath and that of Orgrim. The two looked at each other, stunned by what they had just witnessed. Both had seen the Draenei before, of course, but only at a distance. They came now and then each to and then to each clan ready to trade their carefully crafted tools and weapons and decorative pieces of carved stone in exchange for thick pelts of the forest animals, brightly woven blankets, and raw materials the orcs had culled from the land and stone. It had always been an occasion of interest with the clans, but the exchange only lasted a few hours. The Draenei, blue-skinned, soft-spoken, eerily arresting, did not invite closeness, and no clan leader had ever asked them to stay and share their hospitality. Relationships were cordial and aloof, but everyone involved seemed to want it that way. Hi, Jay Sizzle. La Kwai Samar. Now the leader of the group that had arrived so unexpectedly strode over to Duratan. From his position in the earth, Duratan saw what he had never noticed when he had regarded the Draenei from a distance. Their legs did not go straight from their torsos to the earth. They curved backwards like a talbuk's and ended in cloven hooves that were encased in metal from the shiny blue hoof upward. And yes, it was most definitely a thick, hairless tail that swished back and forth. Now their owners was bending over him, offering a strong blue hand. Oh, now the tail owner. Now that their owner was bending over him, offering a strong blue hand. Duratan blinked, staring a moment longer at the unexpected shape of the Draenei's feet and reptilian tail, and then got to his feet, unaided. He looked into the face that bore a strange plating on its head, like armor that had grown there. Black hair and a beard flowed over a colorful tabard, and the piercing glowing eyes were the color of a winter lake. "You are injured?" the Draenei asked, halting in common Orcish, his tongue obviously having trouble wrapping itself around the guttural syllables. "Only my pride," Duratan heard Orgrim mutter in his clan dialect. He, too, was somewhat stung. The Draenei had obviously saved both their lives, and he was grateful, of course, but they had seen two proud Orcs youth running from danger. Granted, that danger had been very real. One blow from that gigantic club would have squashed him and Orgrim into small, crumpled piles, but still. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Hello, Hamster Cage. The Draenei may or may not have heard or understood Orgrim. Duratan thought he saw his lips curve in a smile. The Draenei glanced skyward, and to his dismay, Duratan realized the sun was low on the horizon. "You two have wandered far from home, and the sun settles to sleep," he said. "Which clan do you hail from?" "I am Duratan of the Frostwolf clan, and this is Orgrim of the Blackrock clan." The Draenei looked startled. "Two different clans? Were you challenging one another, that you wandered so far from your respective homes?" Duratan and Orgrim exchanged glances. "Yes and no. We are friends." The Draenei's eyes widened. "Friends? From two different clans?" Orgrim nodded. "Yes," he added somewhat defensively. "It's not traditional, but it is not forbidden." The Draenei nodded, but he still looked surprised. He regarded both of them for a moment, then turned to two of his companions and murmured something in his native tongue. Duratan thought the language so profoundly musical, like the sound of a stream meandering over stones or a bird's call. The other two Draenei listened intently and nodded. One took a waterskin from his belt, drank deeply, and then began to run with a gait nearly as smooth and swift as a talbuk's, headed southwest where the Frost Wolf clans were. The second raced towards the east, towards the Black Rock clan. The Draenei who had been speaking to them turned. "They will notify your families that you are well and safe. You will return home tomorrow. In the meantime, I am happy to offer you the hospitality of the Draenei. My name is Restalan. I am the leader of the guards of Telmore. Telmore. Telmore, the town which by both your clans regularly trade. I regret to say I do not remember either of you, but then the orc younglings seem a bit leery of us when we come into your territory." Orgrim bristled. "I am afraid of no one and no thing." Restalan smiled a bit. "You ran from the ogre." Orgrim's brown face darkened, and his eyes glinted angrily. Duratan lowered his head slightly, as he had feared. Restalan and the others had borne witness to their shame, and now they would be mocked. "That," Restalan continued calmly, as if he had not noticed the effect of his words he had on the two, "is wisdom. If you had not fled, we'd be sending two corpses home to your families tomorrow instead of two healthy, strong young orcs. There's no shame in fear, Orgrim and Duratan, only in letting fear prevent you from doing the right thing. And in your case, running was definitely the right thing." All right, we have an ad starting soon, so I'm going to take the ad break and probably get a little bit more food, but then we'll keep going. We have a good bit of chapter 3 to go through, but I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that BRB screen. But you can continue listening to the sounds of Origins from the World of Warcraft soundtrack, Burning Crusade soundtrack. Hope you're all still enjoying. But yeah, with that, we'll be right back. Get some food, get some water if you need, stretch your legs, stretch your neck, roll your shoulders, pull your shoulders out. And we'll be right back with more chapter 3. Be right back. All right, welcome back from the ad. Hopefully you stretched your legs or stretched out a bit, got some water. We're going to continue chapter 3, where Durtan and Orgrim have met the Draenei up close, and the Draenei are gonna take care of them after saving them from the ogre. From the ogre. I hope you guys are enjoying the story so far. Okay, where are we? Why don't we switch over to? I don't know what some of the songs sound like. So let me see. Maybe we go to Thunder Bluff. More visions of the prophet. Hmm. Oh, I know. Shards of the Exodar. Let's do that because they're going to take him to Temlor, which is where the Draenei, well, not all of them, but is one of the cities of the Draenei on Draenor. Okay. So where were we? Let me see. Oh yeah, okay. There is no shame in fear, Orgrim and Duratan. Only letting fear prevent you from doing the right thing. And in your case, running was definitely the right thing. Duratan stuck out his chin. One day, we'll be strong in our full size. Then it'll be the ogres who fear us. Restylon turned a mild face to him, and to Duratan's surprise, he nodded. I completely agree. Orcs are powerful hunters. Orgrim narrowed his eyes, looking for the taunt, but there was none. Come. There are dangers in the Terakar forest at night that not even the guards of Telmor would willingly face. Let us go, Restylon said. Though exhausted, Duratan found his strength to keep up a steady running pace. He would not twice be shamed in one day. They ran for some time, and the sun eventually dipped below the horizon in a glorious display of crimson, gold, and finally purple. He glanced up now, trying not to appear rude, but curious indeed at seeing these strangers at more than a several yards' distance. He kept waiting for the signs of a city, roads made by countless feet traveling the same path, fire cairns lighting a path, the shadows of buildings against the darkening sky. He saw nothing, and as he continued, he felt a quick stab of fear. What if the Draenei were not planning to help him, and Orgrim after all? What if they were going to capture them and hold them for ransom? What if they were going to do something worse, sacrifice them to some dark god, or... Here we are, Restylon said. He dismounted and knelt on the ground, moving aside some leaves and pine needles. Orgrim and Duratan exchanged confused glances. They were still at the middle of a forest. No city, no roads, nothing at all. Both orcs gathered themselves. They were severely outnumbered, but they would not die without a fight. Still kneading on the pine needle carpet, Restylon uncovered a beautiful green crystal. It had been carefully hidden beneath everyday deritis of the forest. Duratan stared, enraptured by the beauty of the thing. It would fit into the palm of his hand, and he ached to touch it, to feel its smoothness, a strange pulsing against his skin. Somehow he knew it would exude a calm likes of which he had never experienced. Restylon uttered a string of syllables that branded themselves on Duratan's brain. I'm going to try to read this. Kelamen asemir, solelama kal. The forest began to shimmer as if it were a reflection caught by a once still lake into which a stone had been tossed. Despite himself, Duratan gasped. The shimmering increased, and then suddenly there was no forest, no trees, only a large paved road that led up to the side of the mountains to a place that contained images Duratan had never before conceived. We are in the heart of ogre country, though it was not so when the city was built so long ago, Restylon had said, rising. If the ogres cannot see us, they cannot attack us. Duratan found his tongue. But how? A simple illusion, nothing more. A trick of the light. There was something in the way he had said that made Duratan's skin prickle. Seeing the orc's confused expression, Restylon continued. The eyes cannot always be trusted. We think what we see is always real, but the light always reveals what there is the same way at all times. What is there the same way at all times? But light and shadow can be manipulated, directed, by those who understand it. And in speaking of these words and the touching of the crystal, I have altered how the light falls on the rocks, the trees, the landscape, and so your eye perceives something entirely different from what you thought was there. Duratan knew he still stared stupidly. Restylon chuckled slightly. Come, my new friends. Come where none of your people have ever been before. Walk down the roads of my home. Oh, and that was chapter 3. Oh wait. Was that chapter 2? I thought that was chapter 3. It was chapter 2. My bad. Now we're on to chapter 3. I'm gonna take a bite of my food really quick though. Yummy. Okay. So this time we're on chapter 3. Sorry. And again, the beginning paragraph is going to be from the point of view of Thrall. Drekthar had not seen the cities of the Draenei when they were at peace. He only saw them when... Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. But he told me that my father walked the shining roads of the Draenei, had eaten their food and slept in their buildings, and spoken with them fairly. He had caught a glimpse of a whole world so unlike their own that even today it's hard to wrap one's head around it. Even the lands of the Kaldorei were not so alien to me as what I've learned of the Draenei. Drekthar said that Durotan did not have the words to describe what he saw. Perhaps today, living in this land that bears his name and seeing what I have seen, he would. Regret is a bitter taste. Okay, into the chapter. Durotan couldn't move. It was as if the mysterious net of shining energy had flung itself about him as it did the ogre, and he was helpless to resist. He stared, his mouth slightly open, trying to make sense of what his eyes showed him. The Draenei city was glorious, woven into the side of a mountain as if it had sprung from it. To Durotan's eyes, it was a union of stone and metal, of nature and artifice. He did not know exactly what he was seeing, but he knew it to be harmonious. With its concealing spell dissolved, the city was revealed in a tranquil magnificence. Thank you for the follow. Well, hopefully the book is interesting then, as in your current state. Massive stone steps, wide and blunt at the base, tapering towards the top, led to spherical dwellings. One reminded Durotan of a snail shell, another a mushroom. The combination was striking. Bathed in the hues of the setting sun, the bold lines of the steps were softened, and the dome seemed even more invitingly rounded. He turned to see a similar expression of awe on Orgrim's face, and then saw the slight smile curving on Restalan's blue lips. "You are welcome here, Durotan and Orgrim," Restalan said. The words seemed to break the spell, and Durotan moved forward awkwardly. The stone of the roads had been smoothed by time or the Draenei hands, he could not say. As they drew closer, Durotan could see that the city continued up the mountain, the architectural pattern of wide, bold steps leading softly to a curved structure that was repeated here. There were long roads made of the same white stone that somehow did not seem to get dirty, although at least 10 generations of orc had long lived and died since the Draenei had arrived. Instead, the skins and horns of animals slain in the hunt, the Draenei seemingly utilized the gifts of the earth. Gleaming gems were everywhere, and there was a curious overabundance of light brown metal unlike any Durotan had ever seen. The orcs knew metal, they worked it to serve them. Durotan himself had helped hunt with an axe and sword, but this... "What is your city made of?" Orgrim asked. It was the first thing he had said since the two begun their odd journey with the company of the Draenei. "Many things," Restalan had said amiably. They were passing through the gates now, receiving curious but not hostile looks from the denizens of this place. "We are travelers, fairly new to your world." Don't matter what book I can read. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. "New," Durotan said. "It was over 200 summers ago that your people came here." "We are not as we are now." "No, you are not," Restalan agreed smoothly. "We have watched those orcs grow in strength and skill and talent. You've impressed us." Durotan knew it was meant as a compliment, but somehow the comment stung, as if the Draenei thought they were somehow better than the orcs. The thought came and went, fleeting as a brush from a butterfly's wings. He kept looking around, and to his shame wondered if it was not indeed the case. No orc dwelling was this ornate, this complicated. But then, the orcs were not Draenei. They did not need or choose to live like the Draenei. "To answer your question, Orgrim, when we arrived here, we utilized everything we had brought with us. I know your people build boats to travel rivers and lakes. Well, we came on a boat that could travel in the sky. A boat that brought us here. It was made of metal and other things. Once we realized that this was to be our new home, we took part of the boat and used it in our architecture." Hi, Hashi. One step closer to the WoW Academic Lecture Stream. We sure are. We're getting closer, y'all. So that was that giant, muted, swirling metal that seemed at once to be made of copper and skin. Durotan's breath caught. Beside him, Orgrim scowled. "You lie! Metal cannot float. An orc would have growled and boxed Orgrim's ears hard for such insolence. The Denai merely chuckled. So one would think. But one would think that it would not be possible to summon the elements to fight an ogre if one did not know better. That's different, sniffed Orgrim. That's magic. So is this, of a sort, Restylon said. He beckoned to one of his men and said something in his native tongue. The other Janai nodded and hurried ahead. There's someone I'd like you to meet, if he's not too busy, Restylon said, and then fell silent. Duratan had 1,000 questions but did not dare voice them, fearing he'd make himself look foolish. Orgrim seemed to have accepted Restylon's comment about magic, but both youths still craned their necks, looking around. They passed many Draenei in the street, and once saw a female who looked about their age. She was delicately built but tall, and when Duratan met her gaze, she seemed startled. Then a soft smile curved her lips, and she ducked her head shyly. Duratan felt himself smiling in return. Without thinking, he said, "In our encampment you would find many children. Where are the Draenei children?" "We do not have many," Restylon said. "Our people are very long-lived, and because of that, we do not often have children." "How long-lived?" "Very," was all Restylon would say. Suffice it to say that I remember our arrival here." Orgrim stared openly at their companion. Duratan wanted to elbow him, but he was too far away. He suddenly realized that the young, seeming female they had just seen was probably nowhere near his age after all. At that moment, the scout Restylon had dispatched returned and spoke quickly. Restylon looked pleased at whatever the scout had to say, then turned, smiling to the two orcs. "The one who brought us to this world, our prophet, Velen, is staying here for several days. I thought he might wish to see you. It is not often we get such visitors." Restylon's smiled widened. "I am very pleased to say that not only has Velen agreed to meet you, he has invited you to stay with him at this evening. You are to dine with him and sleep in the Magister's house. This is a very high honor indeed." Both boys were struck dumb. Dinner with the prophet? The leader of the Draenei? Duratan was beginning to think it might have been for better if he'd been squashed flat by the ogre's club. "How are we? We're good. Yeah, how are you guys doing? Hope you're doing good. Hope you're enjoying." They followed dutifully as Restylon led them down the winding, climbing trees, up through the foothills, and to the large building that sat highest on the mountain. The steps, perfectly square and solid, seemed to go on forever, and Duratan's breath came quickly as they climbed. He reached to the top and was regarding a snail-shell structure with interest when Restylon said, "Look back." Duratan and Orgrim obeyed, and Duratan's breath caught in his throat. Below them, spread out like jewels on a meadow, was the Draenei city. The last bit of sunset painted them in flaming colors. Then the sun settled over the horizon, and all was bathed in shades of purple and gray. Lights came on in the houses, and Duratan thought of the stars in the sky settling in the earth. "I do not mean to brag, but I am very proud of my people and our city," Restylon said. "We have worked hard here. We love Draenor, and I never thought to have the chance to share it with an orc. The ways of destiny are strange indeed." As he said this, a deep, almost ancient sorrow seemed to settle on his strong blue features. He shook off the mood and smiled. "Come in, and you will be attended to." Silent, shocked, almost beyond the ability to speak, their young minds wide open to all the sights and sounds and the smells of this thoroughly alien place, Duratan and Orgrim entered the Magister's seat. They were shown into rooms that, while ornate and beautiful, made them feel oddly penned in. The curving walls, so attractive from the outside and no less lovely here, seemed to confine rather than embrace them. Fruit sat in bowls ready for consumption. Strange clothes were set out for them to wear, and a tub of water so hot that it steamed as it sat in the middle of the room. "The water is too hot to drink and is too much for steeping leaves." "It is for bathing," the Janai replied. "Bathing!" "To wash the dirt from one's body," Restylon said. Orgrim shot him a look, but Restylon seemed to be quite serious. "We swim in the rivers in summers. Perhaps this is similar?" "You do not need to do anything you feel uncomfortable with. The bath, the food, the clothes are here for your pleasure. But Prophet Velen will expect to see you in an hour. I will come for you then. Is there anything you need?" They shook their heads. Restylon nodded and closed the door. Duratan turned to Orgrim. "Do you think we're in danger?" Orgrim eyed the strange materials in the hot water. "No. I feel like I'm in a cave. I would rather be in a tent. Me too. Duratan went to the wall and tentatively touched the curving surface. It felt cool and smooth beneath his fingers, and he realized he expected it to feel warm and somehow alive. Duratan turned to point at the water. Do you want to try it? No, Orgrim said. Both orcs started laughing. Both eventually splashed their faces and found the warm water to be more pleasant than anticipated. They ate fruit, drank water, and decided that the cloth vests laid out for their uses were acceptable to wear in place of their soiled, sweat-stiff tunics, but they would keep their leather breeches. The time passed more swiftly than they anticipated, and they were engaged in a challenge to bend one of the metal legs of a chair when there came a soft knock on the door. They jumped, guiltily. Orgrim had managed to twist the chair leg somewhat, and it stood a bit crookedly now. The prophet is here to see you now, said Restallon. He's an elder, was the first thing Duratan thought as his eyes met those of the prophet Velen. Seeing the other Draenei up close had been startling enough. To behold Velen was something else again. The Draenei prophet was half a head taller than the tallest of the city guards Duratan had seen, but not as powerful seeming physically. His body, clad in soft, swirling light tan robes, seemed less muscular than theirs, and his skin. It was a warm alabaster hue. His eyes, deep set and wise, glowed a brilliant blue and were encircled by deeply etched wrinkles, speaking of one who was not just an elder, but possibly even ancient. His silver hair did not flow down his back, as was the case with the others, but was ornately braided and looped, exposing his pale skull. His beard flowed like silver waves almost down to his waist. Not an elder, not even ancient, Duratan thought, as those blue, intense, glowing eyes settled upon him and seemed to bore into his very soul, almost outside of time altogether. Hi, Wolfgang. He thought about Restallon's comment, that he himself was over 200 summers. Velen, then, was a good deal older than that. Welcome, Velen said in a mellow voice as he rose and inclined his head. The braids danced with the movement. I am Velen. I am glad that my people found you today, though I doubt not that in a few years you would be more than capable of handling an ogre and even a Gron by your two selves. Again, Duratan did not know how he knew this, but this was no idle compliment. Orgrim sensed it, too, for he stood up even straighter and met the Draenei's eyes evenly. Velen waved them to sit, and they did so. Duratan felt awkward and ungainly sitting in the lavish table in an ornately carved chair. When the food came out, he relaxed inwardly. The haunch of a talbuk roasted white feathers, large rounds of bread and plate heaped high with vegetables. This was food he knew and understood. Somehow, he had expected something entirely different. But why? Their buildings and way of life might be vastly different from that of the orcs, but like the orcs, the Draenei lived off of what the land could provide. The preparation was slightly unusual. The orcs tended to either boil their food or cook it over an open flame, when they cooked at all. Frequently flesh was eaten raw, but overall the food was food, and this food was delicious. Velen was an excellent host. He asked questions and seemed genuinely interested in responses. How old would the boys be before they could hunt ogres, chose a mate? What was their favorite thing to eat? What was their favorite weapon? Orgrim, even more than Duratan, warmed to the conversation and began talking of his prowess. To his credit, he did not need to embellish much of his stories. When my father passes, I will inherit Doomhammer, Orgrim said proudly. It is an old and honorable weapon, passed down from father to eldest child. You will swing it well, Orgrim, said Velen, but I trust that it will be many years before you take on the name of Doomhammer. The fact that his father would have to die before he would become Orgrim Doomhammer seemed to have momentarily escaped the young orc, and he abruptly grew solemn. Velen smiled, with Duratan, though, thought a hint of sorrow. At the movement, fine cracks appeared on Velen's face, the subtlest of spiderwebs on that smooth white surface. But describe this hammer to me. It must be a mighty weapon. Orgrim brightened again. It's enormous. The stone is black and blunt and powerful, and the shaft is made of carefully crafted wood. Over the years, the shaft has had to be replaced, but the stone itself has not a chip on it. It is called Doomhammer because when the owner takes it into battle, it spells doom for the enemy. I see, said Velen, still smiling. Orgrim was warming to his task. But there are also other another but there is also another prophecy, he continued. It is said the last of the Doomhammer line will use it to bring the first salvation and then doom to the Orc people. Then it will pass into the hands of one who is not of the Blackrock clan, and will change all again, and it will at once be used again in the cause of justice. That is a powerful prophecy, said Valen. He said no more, but Duratan felt a shiver. This man was dubbed the Prophet by his people. Did he know if the Doomhammer prophecy would come true? Did Duratan dare ask? Orgrim continued, describing the Doomhammer in loving detail. Duratan, who'd seen the weapon in question, ceased listening to Orgrim's chatter and focused on Velen. Why was this being so interested in them? Duratan was a sensitive youth, he knew. He had overheard some snippets of conversation from his parents who were worried about such sensitivity, and from Mother Kashur, who scoffed at them and told them to worry about more important things and to leave the boy to his fate. Duratan knew feigned interest when he saw it, and he felt he'd recognized it even in a Draenei, but Velen's brilliant blue eyes were bright and focused, his kind, if ugly face open, his question sincere. He wanted to hear about the orcs, and the more he heard, the sadder he seemed to become. I wish Mother Kashur could be here instead of me, Duratan thought suddenly. She would appreciate this opportunity more than Orgrim or I could. When Orgrim had finished describing the Doomhammer, Duratan asked, Can you tell us of your people, Prophet? We know so little. In the last few hours I have learned more than any of my people have over the last 100 years, I think. Velen turned his glowing blue eyes to Duratan. Duratan wanted to quail from the gaze, not because he was afraid of it, but because he had never felt before so seen. The Draenei have never withheld information, young Duratan, but I believe that you may be the first to have ever asked. What do you wish to know? Everything, Duratan wanted to say, but instead focused his question. The orcs had never met the Draenei until 200 summers past. Restalon said you came here in a great vessel that can travel the skies. Tell me more of this. Velen took a sip of the beverage that tasted like summer to Duratan and smiled. To begin with, Draenei is not our true name. It's a term that means exiled ones. Duratan gaped. We disagreed with others in our world. We chose not to sell our people into slavery, and for that we were exiled. We have spent much time finding a suitable place to dwell, a place to call our own. We fell in love with this land, and we call it Draenor. Duratan nodded. He had heard the term before. He liked how it sat on his tongue when he spoke it, and the orcs did not have a name for this place other than world. It is our term. We have not the arrogance to think that the orcs would use it as well, but such have we dubbed it, and we love Draenor deeply. It's a beautiful world, and we have seen many. Orgrim gasped. You've seen other worlds? Indeed we have, and met many people. People like the orcs? Velen smiled gently. There is no one like the orcs, he said, respect resonant in his voice. You are quite unique in our travels. Duratan and Orgrim looked at each other and sat up a little straighter in their chairs. But yes, we had been traveling for some time before we found this land. Here we are, and here we will stay. Duratan burned to ask more, to ask how long they'd been traveling, and what their homeland had been like, and why they left it. But there was something in Velen's timeless face that told him, although he had been invited to inquire, the Draenei leader would not tell him that particular tale. So instead he asked how they had tamed the nature of their weapons and magic. Our magic comes from the earth, Duratan said, from the shaman and the ancestors. Our magic comes from a different source, Velen said. I do not think you'd understand it if I explain it. Orgrim said indignantly, We're not stupid. Forgive me, I did not mean to imply that, Velen said at once. It was a graceful and sincere apology. Again, Duratan was impressed. Your people are wise, and you two are obviously bright, but I am not sure I have the words in your language. I have no doubt that if I had the time and vocabulary, you would understand. Even in the explanation, he seemed to grope for words. Duratan thought of the sort of magic that could disguise a city, though the soft, uncanny metal somehow melded with gems of the earth and solid stone, and he realized Velen was right. There did not breathe an orc who could have grasped all this in a single evening, though he suspected Mother Kashur would have intrinsic comprehension, and he again wondered why it was the two races and wondered why it was that the two races did not interact more. The conversation turned to more mundane topics. The youths learned that the deep in the Terakar forest was a spot sacred to the Draenei called the Auchindoun. I always forget how to say it. The Auchindoun. Here, the dead were laid to rest, placed in the ground instead of being burned on pyres. Privately, Duratun thought this odd, but he held his tongue. Temlor was the closest town to the city of the dead, and the Velen had come on a sad mission to lay to rest someone who had died fighting the same ogre that had almost claimed Orgrim and Duratun earlier that day. Normally, Velen explained, he lived in a beautiful place called the Temple of Karabor. There were other Janai towns, but the largest was to the north, a place called Shatrath. At last, the meal was over. Velen sighed, and his eyes rested on his empty plate, but Duratun felt certain that the prophet did not see it. You will excuse me, Velen said, rising. It has been a long day, and I must meditate before I sleep. It has been an honor to meet you, Duratun of the Frostwolf clan, Orgrim of the Blackrock clan. I trust you will sleep well and deeply, safe within these walls, where none of your people have been before. Duratun and Orgrim rose with the others and bowed. Velen smiled with, Duratun thought, a hint of that strange sorrow that he had glimpsed in the Draenei leader earlier. We will meet again, young ones. Good night. The two orcs left shortly after. They were escorted to their rooms and indeed slept well, though Duratun had a dream of an old orc sitting quietly by his side and wondered what it meant. What are we at? We're at 2 hours? Okay, we'll finish this chapter and then I'm gonna call it there. But almost, I don't know actually how many pages are left, but we'll keep going. Bring him, the old orc said to Mother Kashur. Mother Kashur, the eldest shaman of the Frostwolf clan, slept deeply. Because of her high position of honor, her tent was second in lavishness only to that of Garad, the clan leader. Thick rugs of cleft-hoof fur kept her old bones from the cold of the earth, and a loyal and loving granddaughter tended to her needs, cooking and cleaning and keeping the fire stoked on cold days for the clan's mother. Oh, good luck with work. Thanks, Wolfgang. Mother Kashur's duty was to listen to the wind and water and fire and grass, to drink the bitter herbal beverage to drink the herbal beverage each night and open her mind to visits from the ancestors. She gathered information for her clan the way others gathered fruits and firewood. This gift was nourished them as deeply. The old orc was not present, and yet she knew he was real. He was in her dream, and that was enough for her. In this dream state, she was young and vibrant and could see her ruddy skin glowing with health, knew her form to be sleek and knotted with muscle. The old orc was the age at which he had died, the age at which wisdom had been at its height. His name had been Talkra in life, but now, although he was many generations distant from her, she called him only grandfather. You received the message, grandfather told the young, vibrant dream Kashur. She nodded, her dark hair flowing in the movement. He and the Blackrock boy are with the Draenei, she said. They will be safe. I can feel it. Grandfather Talkra nodded, his thick jowls shaking with movement. His tusks were yellowed with age, and one had been broken off in a battle since long forgotten. Yes, they are safe. Bring him. It was the second time he had said this, and Kashur was not certain as to what he meant. He will come to the mountain in a few months, when the trees shed their leaves to sleep, she said. So yes, I will bring him. Talkra shook his head fiercely, his brown eyes narrowed in annoyance. Kashur smothered a smile. Of all the spirits that honored her with their presence, Grandfather Talkra was the least patient. No, no, Talkra growled. Bring him to us. Bring him to the caverns of Oshugun. I will look upon him there. Kashur inhaled swiftly. You wish me to take him to meet the ancestors? Is that not what I just said? Foolish girl. What happened to the shaman these days? It was a rant he went on frequently, and it troubled Kashur not in the slightest. She was too stunned by the import of what he just said. Sometimes the ancestors had wanted to see a child before. It was infrequent, but it had occurred. Usually it meant that the child in question was destined for the shamanic path. She had not thought Duratan's feet would walk that road. It was rare for a shaman to lead a clan. There would be too much pulling him in different directions for him to be an effective leader. To both listen to and honor the spirits and to guide one's people well were more than most orcs could manage. One who could do both would be remarkable indeed. When Kashur did not reply, Grandfather growled and slammed his staff on the ground. Kashur jumped slightly. I will bring him on his initiation day, Kashur assured her ancestor. At last, you understand, Takra said, shaking his staff at her. And if you fail me, I will take your staff to your head instead of the innocent earth. He could not completely hide a smile as he said that. Kashur smiled back, and her dream self closed her eyes. For all his bluster and short temper, Takwa was wise and kind and loved her deeply. She wished she had known him while he was alive, but he had died almost 100 years ago. Kashur's eyelids fluttered open, and she sighed as her spirit returned to her current and real body. As old as Talcra had been when he died, hands and feet curled up with joint pain, body weak, hair stark white, she knew in her heart that the time would soon come when she'd be able to leave this body, this shell, for the final time, and be with the ancestors in the sacred mountain. Drekthar, her apprentice, would then be advisor to Garad and the rest of the Frostwolf clan. She had every confidence in him, and actually looked forward to the day she would be pure spiritual energy. Although she mused as the sunlight trickled in and birdsong caressed her ears, she would miss the things that being alive granted her. The simple things like birdsong and hot food and the loving touch of her granddaughter. Bring him, Grandfather had said, and so she would. Okay, we're on chapter 4. Bless you, Cloudy. I'm gonna go ahead and read chapter 4 because I really like chapter 4. So we'll continue reading, but I am gonna take another quick break to eat my food before it gets completely cold. So we'll be right back. We'll read chapter 4 and then we'll be done. So stretch your legs, get some water if you need to. Roll your shoulders back, roll your head around. Stretch that. Stretch. Big sneezes, I know. But we will be right back. Be right back. Oh, that food is spicy. Okay, we're back. I probably shouldn't be eating spicy food as I'm doing a reading stream, but you know, it is what it is. It's so delicious. But welcome back. It's so yummy. Okay. All right. Promise. Chapter 4, and then we'll call it, and then we'll send you off into a raid, and then we'll be done. Okay. Chapter 4. And again, the beginning paragraph is going to be from Thrall's perspective. Last night, with the moon full overhead and as stars gleaming, as if in approval, a young male was initiated into adulthood. Oh wait, no, it's not from Thrall's perspective. Never mind. Never mind. A young male was initiated into adulthood. It was the first time I've had the chance to be a part of this ritual, the Orgrimmar. In my earlier years, I was cut off from the rites and the traditions of— oh, never mind, it is from Thal's perspective. Don't mind me. I was cut off from rites and traditions of my people, and truth be told, all orcs had been cut off from such rites for too long. And once I had set my feet upon my destiny's path, I had become embroiled in battle. War consumed me. Ironically, the need to protect my people from the Burning Legion and to give them a place where our traditions could again flourish took me far away from these things. But now, Durotar and Orgrimmar are established. Now there is a peace, tenuous though it may be. Now there are shaman reclaiming the ancient ways, young males and females coming of age who, if the spirits will it, may never know the ashy taste of war. Last night I participated in a timeless ritual that had been denied an entire generation. Last night, my heart filled with joy and the sense of connection for which I had always longed. Alright, back to Duratan's perspective. Duratan's heart hammered in his chest as he stared at the Talbuk. It was a mighty beast, worthy prey, and its horn not for mere decoration, but sharp and dangerous. Duratan had seen at least one warrior gored to death, impaled upon the 12 prongs as surely as a spear. Oh, I think this part is where he goes hunting, so a little PSA, a little TMI warning. It's a little visceral, but not like too bad. So if you're uncomfortable with such topics, it's only going to be for the next couple of pages, and then we're going to get to a more not so gory part. Yeah. There had been a whisper, of course. Any mature Talbuk would do to satisfy the needs of the ritual. He had heard someone murmur in his ears as he sat blindfolded in the waiting tent. They are all fierce fighters, but at this season the males have shed their horns. Other whispers. You may only carry one weapon, Duratan, son of Karad, but you could hide armor in the wilderness where no one would know. And the most shameful of all, the shaman will determine if you are successful by tasting the blood upon your face. The blood from a long-dead Talbuk tastes exactly like that of one freshly slain. He ignored all the temptations. Perhaps there had been other orcs who had succumbed to them, but he would not be among them. Duratan would seek out a female who was quite well equipped with horns at this time of year, and he would take one weapon he was permitted, and he would be the blood of the beast he killed, steaming in the cold air that would anoint his cheeks. And now, standing in early, unexpected fall of snow, his axe growing heavier and heavier in his hand, Duratan shivered, but he never faltered. He had been tracking this Talbuk herd for 2 days now, surviving only on what he could gather. Creating meager fires in the twilight that had bathed the snow in rich lavender hue and sleeping in what shelter he stumbled upon. Orgrim had already completed his rite of passage. Sorry, guys. For 1 second. Okay. It seemed as if the Talbot herd, too, was taunting him. He could come upon their tracks droppings easily enough, see where they had scraped the snow for dried grass or pulled bark from the trees, but they had always seemed to elude him. It was late afternoon on the 3rd day when it appeared as though the ancestors had decided to reward his determination. Twilight was coming, and Duratan had thought with a sinking heart that he would have to again seek shelter to mark the end of a fruitless day. Then he realized that small pellets of dung were not frozen hard, but fresh. They were close. He began to run, the snow squeaking beneath his fur boots, a new warmth filling him. He followed the tracks as he had been taught, clear to rise, and beheld a herd of the glorious creatures. Immediately he crouched behind a large boulder and peered around to gaze at the beasts. They were still dark brown against the white snow, their winter coats not yet upon them. There were at least 2 dozen, maybe more, mostly females. It was good that he had found the herd, but now he had another problem. How did he take down just one? Talbuk, unlike many other prey animals, would protect others in their herd. If he attacked one, the rest would come to defend it. The shaman accompanied hunters in order to distract the animals. Durtan was alone, and suddenly he felt very vulnerable. He frowned and rallied himself. He had been searching for these creatures for almost 3 days, and now they were here. Nightfall would see fresh haunch of meat devoured by a hungry orc youth, or it would see a stiffening orc corpse in the snow. He watched them for a while, aware that the shadows were lengthening, but not wanting to hurry and make a fatal mistake. The Talbuk were diurnal creatures, and they were busy digging hollows in the snow in which to curl up. He knew they did such a thing, but now he watched in dismay as they settled in tightly against one another. How would he separate one? Movement caught his eye. One of the females, young and healthy from a gentle summer spent feasting on sweet grass and berries, seemed to be in a feisty mood. She stamped and tossed her head, crowned with a glorious set of horns, almost danced around the others. She did not seem inclined to join them, but like 1 or 2 others, opted to sleep on the outside of the cluster of the furry bodies. Durtan began to grin. What an offering from the spirits! It was a good omen. The liveliest, healthiest doe in the herd, the one who did not need to follow mindlessly, but chose her own path. While that choice would likely be her death, it would also give Duratan a chance to win his honor and right to be treated as an adult. The spirits understood the balance of such things. At least he was told they did. I will sham. Duratan waited. Twilight came and went, and the sun sank below the mountains. Where the sun went the ever feeble warmth it had harbored before. Duratan waited with the patience of the predator. Finally, at the edgiest of the herd, up its long legs and bedded down with its fellows. Oh, the last of them, I say, sorry. Sorry, guys. At last, Duratan moved. His limbs were stiffed, and he almost stumbled. He crept slowly from his hiding place behind the boulder and went down the slope, his eyes on the drowsing female. Her head had drooped along its long neck, and breathing was regular. He could see small white puffs appearing in front of her muzzle. Slowly, placing his feet as carefully as he could, he moved toward his quarry. He did not feel the heat of anticipation. The powerful focus drove any sense of discomfort away. Closer still he came, and still the Talbuk doe dreamed. He lifted his axe and he swung it down. All right, this is where things get a little bit descriptive, so if you're squeamish, feel free to mute for just maybe like 45 seconds. Okay. He lifted his axe and swung it down. Her eyes opened. She tried to scramble to her feet, but the death blow had already come. Durtan wanted to scream, the battle cry he had heard his father utter so many times, but he bit it back. It would not do to slay the Talbuk, but only to be slain by himself by a dozen in the herd in retaliation. He had sharpened the blade to a shocking keenness, and it sliced through the neck and thick vertebrae as if slicing through cheese. Blood splurted, and the warm, sticky fluid spattering Duratan gently. He smiled fiercely. Anointing himself with the blood of his first solo kill was a part of the ritual, and the Talbuk doe had done it for him. Another good omen. Silent though he tried to be, he heard the sounds of the awaking herd. He whirled and breathed heavily and let loose a blood-chilling battle cry with his throat had been aching to utter. He held his axe, the gleam of the metal blade now obscured with crimson blood, and bellowed again. The Talbuk hesitated. He had been told that if it was a clean kill, they would flee rather than attack, intuiting on some primal level that they could no longer help their fallen sister. He had hoped this was true, that he might be able to take her down 1 or 2, but would fall beneath their padded feet if they chose to attack. I forgot the music picks up. Let's go back to Thunderbluff. Okay. Also, vivid part is over. You may come back if you needed to step away for the squeamishness. Moving as one, they began to slowly back away and then finally whirled and turned to run. He watched them gallop over the rise to disappear, their paw prints in pristine snow only evidence that they had been there. Duratan lowered his axe, panting with exertion. He raised it again and let a cry of triumph. His empty belly would be filled tonight. The spirit of the Talbot would enter his dreams, and on the morrow he would return to his people, an adult male, ready to take his place serving the clan, ready to one day become its leader. And the chapter's not over. I'm just going to switch to another more chill song. Why do we not ride? Duratan asked petulantly, glowering like a child. Because that is not the way it is done, Mother Kesher said curtly. Irritated, she cuffed at the boy. Duratan was young and fit. The lengthy hike to the sacred mountain of the ancestors was nothing to him. She, on the other hand, would have deeply appreciated being able to ride atop her great black wolf, Dreamwalker, but the traditions were ancient and specific, and as long as she was able to walk she would. Duratan bowed his head in acknowledgement, and they continued on. Despite the fact that each trip exhausted her more than the previous one, Mother Kesher felt a sense of excitement that helped temper the pain and weariness she had taken. She had taken many a youngling, both male and female, for each was as valued as the other, on this final part of their rite of adulthood, but never before had she been asked to bring one before their ancestors. She was not too old to be curious. It was less than a few hours for the young, about a day for the older bones to make the trip. Evening was coming, and they were almost there. Mother Kesher looked up at the familiar shape of the mountain and smiled. Unlike other mountain ranges, whose angles seemed to be random, Oshugun's spire was perfectly triangle. Gleaming like a crystal, its facets catching the sun, it resembled the surrounding terrain not at all. It had come from the heavens long ago, and the spirits had been drawn to it. It was for this reason the orcs had settled here, in its sacred shadow. Whatever squabbles and petty differences they had as living beings, they were one here, inside this mountain. She would go there again soon, she knew, but not as a hobbling elderly woman. This was her last visit in such a broken vessel. The next time Kesher approached Oshugun, she would come as a spirit, floating in the air as the birds did, her heart light, clean, and made anew. What's wrong, Mother? Duratan asked, concern in his young voice. She blinked, coming out of her reverie, and smiled at him. Not a thing, she assured him truthfully. The shadows that had chased away the sunlight by the time they had reached the foot of the mountain. They would sleep here tonight and begin their ascent at dawn. Duratan fell asleep first, wrapped in the hide of a Talbot doe he himself had slain not too long ago, and Mother Kesher watched him fondly as he slept the deep sleep of the innocent. She herself would have no dreams. Her mind needed to be clear if she were to be ready to receive visions on the morrow. The climb was a long and tiring one. Harder by far than the simple hike to reach the mountain, and Kesher was grateful for both her sturdy staff and Duratan's strong hand. Oh, sorry, one sec. But today, Kesher's feet seemed to move more surely. Her lungs worked more efficiently as she and her young charge climbed. She felt as if the ancestors were pulling her forward, aiding her physical body with the power of her spirit ones. They paused at the entrance of the sacred cave. It was perfect, oval, and smooth in the surface of the mountain, as always. Kesher felt as though she were entering the womb of the earth. Duratan tried to look brave, but succeeded in only looking slightly nervous. Mother Kesher did not smile at him. He should be nervous. He was about to enter the sacred space at the specific request of one of his long-dead ancestors. Even she was not unmoved. She lit a bundle of dry grass and which gave off a sweet, pungent scent, and waved the smoke over him to purify him. And she marked him with the blood of his own father he had shed for this moment, kept in a carefully small stoppered leather bag. Kesher placed her withered hand upon his smooth, low brow and murmured her blessing, and then nodded. You well know that few are called here before the ancestors who do not walk the path of the shaman, she said gravely. Brown eyes widened. Duratan nodded. I do not know what will happen. Maybe nothing, but if something occurs, you know to behave with the honor and respect to the beloved dead. Duratan swallowed and nodded again, and then he took a deep breath and stood straight and tall. In the unyet molded body of a boy, Kesher saw a hint of the clan chieftain to become. Together, they went inside. Mother Kashur going first to light the torches that lined the walls. The orange illumination showed them the downward twining path, worn smooth by years of bare or booted orc feet. Here and there were steps had been carved to make those pilgrims' feet more secure. It was always cool inside the tunnel, warmer than it was outside in winter, though. Kashur let her hand brush the sides of the wall, remembering the first time she had come here long ago. The blood of her mother wet on her face, her eyes wide, her heart racing. Finally, the long, gentle downward slope eased. There were no more torches on the wall to light, and Duratan looked at her puzzled. We will not need to bring the fire to come before the ancestors, Kashur said. They continued on a level surface, traveling in the darkness. Duratan was not frightened, but he did look confused as they left the comfort of the fire behind. Now, it was completely dark. Kashur reached out a hand and grasped Duratan's to guide him. He was strong, his strong, stubby fingers folded gently around hers. Even now, when he might be expected to clutch my hand, he remembers how it aches, she thought. The next Frostwolf chieftain would have a considerate heart. Sorry, I'm going to switch up the song one more time. Okay. They continued without speaking, and then, subtly, like the arrival of dawn after a long dark night, the light began to grow around them. Now Kashur could dimly see the shape of the youth who stood beside her, so much younger than she and yet already walking in the body of a grown male. She watched him as they moved forward. The miracle of the cave of the ancestors was familiar to her, but Duratan's reaction was not. His eyes widened and he inhaled swiftly as he looked around. The glow emanated from a pool in the center of the cavern, casting a soft white light over everything. It was smooth and soft and dimly radiant. There were no sharp angles or rough places, and Kashur felt the familiar sensation of deep peace wash over her. She let Duratan fill the silence. The cavern was huge, larger than the main drumming and dancing area at the Koshgar's festival. IDKY, but is making me want some sort of WoW radio play. Oh, here I am, WoW radio. But right, it would go pretty good. I'm sure something's done of it before. There's definitely audiobooks though. Branching deep tunnels led to places that Kashur had never dared explore. It would have to be so large, would it not, to be able to host the spirit of every orc who lived and died? She had walked to the water, and he followed her, watching her closely. She removed the package she carried and gestured that he do likewise. Carefully, Kashur removed several water skins, opened them, and with a soft prayer added their waters to the glowing liquid. You asked about the water skins as we departed, she quietly said to Duratan. The water in here is not native to this place. Long ago, we began offering blessed water to the spirits. Every time we come, we contribute to the sacred pool, and even so, I do not know how the water does not dissipate as it would in an ordinary hollow. Such is the power of the mountain of the spirits. Once she had emptied the water skins, she sat down with a soft grunt and peered into the luminous depths. Duratan emulated her. She knew the angle at which she could see her reflection and made sure they both were positioned correctly. At first, all she could see was her own face and that of Duratan. Their features looked spectral themselves, reflected in a white pool rather than a dark one. Then a third figure joined them, as if Grandfather Talcra was standing right beside her shoulder, his reflection as clear as both of theirs. Their eyes met, and Kashur smiled. She craned her neck to look up at him, but Duratan continued to gaze into the water as if searching for the answers there. Kashur's heart sank a little, but immediately she reprimanded herself. If Duratan was not of the shamanic path, then he was not of the shamanic path. Surely his destiny would be an honorable one, regardless, born to lead the clan as he had been. I'm going to dismiss this ad really quick. My many times great-granddaughter, Talcra said, with more gentleness than Kashur had ever heard from him before. You have brought him, as I asked. Leaning heavily on his staff, as insubstantial as he, the spirit of the grandfather moved in a slow circle around Duratan as the young orc continued to look into the water. Kashur watched both Frostwolf males closely. Duratan shivered and looked about, no doubt wondering where the sudden chill came from, and Kashur smiled to herself. He could not see his ancestor's spirit, but he knew, somehow, that Talcra was there. You cannot see him, she said a bit sadly. Durotan's head came up and his nostrils flared. Swiftly he got to his feet. In the eerie light, his tusks looked blue and his skin had a green cast to it. No, mother, I cannot. But is an ancestor present? Indeed he is, Kashur said. She turned her attention to the ghost. I did bring him here as you requested. How do you find him? Durotan swallowed hard, but remained standing straight and tall as the spirit circled him thoughtfully. I sensed something, Talcra said. I thought he'd be a shaman, but if he cannot see me now, then he never will. But altogether, he will not see spirits or summon the elements. He is yet born to a great destiny. He will be an important asset to the Frostwolf clan, indeed, to all his people. He will be a hero? Kashur asked, her breath catching. All orcs strove to uphold a code of courage and honor, but only few were powerful enough to have their names engraved upon the memory of their descendants. At her words, Durotan inhaled swiftly, and she could see the wanting on his face. I cannot tell, said Talcra, frowning a little. Teach him well, Kashur, for one thing is certain. From his line will come salvation. In a gesture of tenderness, the likes of which Kashur had never seen, Talcra had reached out and brushed an insubstantial finger across Durotan's cheek. Durotan's eyes went wide, and Kashur could see he had to fight the natural instinct to draw back, but Durotan did not quail beneath the spectral caress. Then, like mist on a hot day, Talcra was gone. Kashur stumbled a little. She always forgot how the energy of the spirits fed her. Durotan stepped forward quickly to catch her arm, and she was grateful for his youthful strength. Mother, are you all right? He asked. She gripped his arm and nodded. His first concern was for her, not for what the ancestor might or might not have said about him. Even as she pondered the words, she decided not to tell Durotan of them. Level-headed and great-hearted though he was, such a prophecy could corrupt even the truest of orcish hearts. From his line will come salvation. I am all right, she reassured him, but these bones are no longer young, and the energy of the spirits is powerful. I wish I could have seen him, Durotan said a bit wistfully, but I know I felt him. You did, and that is more than most are honored with, Kashur said. Mother, can you tell me what he said? About me being a hero? He was trying to act calm and mature, but a note of pleading crept in. She did not blame him. All wanted to live in a glorious memory, though through tales told of their adventures. He would not be an orc if he did not share that desire. Grandfather Talcra said it was uncertain, she said bluntly. He nodded and hid his disappointment well. That much was all she had planned to say, but something moved her to add. You have a destiny to fill, Durotan, son of Garad. Do not be a fool in battle and die before you can fulfill it. He chuckled then. A fool does not serve his clan well, and that is what I wish to do. Then, future chieftain, Kashur said, chuckling, you had best be about finding a mate. And she laughed out loud for the first time on their journey together. Durotan looked completely unnerved. And that was chapter 4. Patchy. Thank you for coming. That is all I'm going to do for today. But I appreciate y'all hanging out with me while I read. I am going to find a raid for you guys. I know who I'm going to, though. I think we're going to go to Sari today. Sari's doing some art, and she was here earlier. But I hope you enjoyed the first chapters of Rise of the Horde. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a lot of fun. I really enjoy Christie Golden's writing quite a bit. Let me dismiss the ad one more time. And I find it really engrossing. I find it very entertaining. So I'm glad I got to read some of it to you. Tomorrow I'll be doing an art stream. So no more ASMR for today or tomorrow or this week. I might return to this if this was fun enough for people and if it was nice, and we'll continue from chapter 5. And we actually only have 8 hours left in the book, or no, less than that. 6 hours and 40 minutes. So we could probably finish the book in 2 more streams if we wanted to continue it. But yeah, thank you for hanging. Let me get you that raid. Here is your raid messages. go. And we are going to go to Sari, who's doing some art. I'm gonna check the volume on her stream. It might be a little bit louder, but not too much. No, it's pretty chill. And she's also doing a subathon, so be sure to support her and her subathon. Give her a nice hello. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, evening time zone. And I will see you tomorrow for some art at 2:30 p.m. PST, normal stream time. You know what it is. I'll see you then. Thank you so much again, and bye. Bye.